Well, tournaments have already come and gone with set 7, which is pretty insane when you think about how everyone had to get those cards already. But hey, I guess it's possible. But with that, we have already shaken up the meta storm. So, what does that necessarily mean for set 7 and that meta? And what can that mean for you? All of that and more starting right now. So we had our first tournament, and it was actually a pretty big pool that we just necessarily didn't see coming. I was quite shocked that someone was able to actually build everything that they necessarily needed to get these things going. But I guess, when you're play testing and trying to figure things out, you're going to be able to get the cards and everything that you need right away. And people also buy a bunch of cases and things of that nature as well. Well, with that too, we saw what we saw this weekend, which was Oswald was absolutely dominating, and that's a little bit interesting, especially due to the fact that when he was released in set 6, we didn't necessarily see anything crazy about him. He's an $8 card. He's not necessarily utilized all that well in set 6. Just didn't really see any play. But then we saw with just even the release of the new Tamatoa, for example, just how crazy everything was. And we have seen people within the Lorcana community just absolutely freaking out and, not knowing exactly what to do. And we have almost two sides of that meta, which is really interesting to see too. We see a lot of the community that's going on and being like, we need to ban Hiram, we need to take care of Oswald, we need to errata this, we need to do all that. And it's like, well. And on the other side, we have people who are literally buying up everything in the market to build this deck for themselves. Is that necessarily going to be the smartest move? Maybe not. And people are freaking out because the prices are just so dang high. And yes, while it is true that the prices are high, the biggest thing to remember also about this set as well is that retail hasn't necessarily released yet. That's right. We still got about a week and a half until retail actually gets the ability to release their packs and their quantities as well, because we get the ability to go ahead and do the pre-orders through the stores and of that nature as well. So there's a pretty big advantage with all of that. And that's something to keep in mind, is that yes, these prices are inflated not only due to the hype, but also due to the actual quantity of merchandise that is actually available in the market. So prices are going to be coming down, maybe a little bit. Tamatoa might still be able to fall down to about $45 potentially. And the Oswalds, of course, they're probably going to be up to $20 for a while anyway. The Scrooge McDucks, on the other hand, that we have been seeing going up to near $45 to $50 a card. I'm glad I pulled mine. Have been actually, are going to be falling in the future as well. But in regards to Sapphire Steel in this meta and how good it's going to be, well, is it? And the answer is yes. It is going to be a very permanent deck that we are going to be seeing on a regular basis in this new Set 7 meta. Is that necessarily a bad thing? No, not at all. In fact, it's probably a very healthy thing for the game that we finally do have another deck that could very well be on top. Does it hurt that it still has Sapphire in it? Yes, but that's normal. But with that being said, guys, this is a good thing all in all. And for people who are freaking out about the meta, and, you're justifiably so allowed to be able to freak out about that. There's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, you need to keep in mind, guys, we are literally in day 2/day 3 of this meta, and you're already calling for erratas and everything. Give the league time, give the community time to catch up to this new meta. I'm sure there's going to be other decks that are going to be able to actually go into and clean up a lot of this problem, where yes, Sapphire Steel is going to be probably one of the, if not the top tier deck. At the same time, there are still going to be other versions of other colors that are still going to be tier 1 in the meta. I still don't feel like we have necessarily hit that S tier that everyone seems to be freaking out about. Sapphire Steel is a very powerful deck. Ruby Sapphire is a very powerful deck, but there are still decks that are going to be defeating it. It's not going to be in that S tier. It's just going to be high tier 1, and that's perfectly fine with me. And so give the community time to catch up to the meta. And also at the same time, please be a little bit patient. You do not need to necessarily spend the $70 on a Tamatoa unless you just need to. If you absolutely need that deck right now, Cool. More power to you. Congratulations. Have a great day. With that being said, though, we are going to be looking at a couple of different decks that are going to be maybe hitting the meta. We are going to be diving into, of course, the Ruby Sapphire and the Ruby Steel, but we're also going to be jumping into other deck options that might be able to still make a pretty big splash in this set 7 meta. So let's go ahead and dive in. All right. So first and foremost, of course, we are going to be looking up Oswald and Inswald, and this is going to be a really interesting build. I mean, the curve here is absolutely interesting as well, and there's a lot of really good options here that makes this deck so scary. First and foremost, Oswald. What does it necessarily do? Well, it's a 2/1 old school cartoon that is able to go ahead and whenever a card is put into your ink, well, you may reveal the top card of your deck. If it is an item card, you may play that item for free and it enters play exerted. Otherwise, put it at the bottom of your deck. Cool. Well, that is pretty dang good because you are playing 20 or more items. Maurice's Workshop is going to be one of them that's going to be really helping on getting you the card draw. Fishbone Quill, same thing, being able to get you inking fast and powerfully. We also have the Fortisphere and the Popsicle. A Shield of Arendelle, which is going to be able to add +1 resist until the start of your next turn on a chosen character. A Great Stone Dragon, just to, again, get you back into the game as you see fit. And 3 Lucky Dimes, because Oswald and Tamatoa are going to be able to play that for free, which is just absolutely bonkers. And so at the same time, of course, we do have a little bit of ramp going on. We have Bell that is going to be an absolute powerhouse in this deck. You really want to get Bell out in turn 1. Because you can go ahead and play a Popsicle, draw one, play the Bell out for free by sacrificing the Popsicle, and then on the following turn, you basically have a Cinderella here where she can go ahead and sing Let the Storm Rage On or Strength of a Raging Fire, whichever you see fit. Now, of course, you're going to be going through your curve and everything, getting items out as you so please. This doesn't necessarily, which is also interesting, have a Sail the Azurite Sea, which is really interesting, and that might be something that we need to play test a little bit later down the line as well. Instead, though, they do have a Scrooge McDuck, which is just absolutely powerful, because if you have 4 items out, you can go ahead and exert them. Whether they're able to be exerted or not, you can just go ahead and exert them, and you can play this character for free. Then, even after you play him for free, when you play this character, you can look at the top 4 cards of your deck, and you may reveal an item card from among them and put them into your hand, and put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. I mean, it's just absolute bonkers right there. And then, of course, on top of that, we have the Tamatoa here, and the Tamatoa so shiny. Now, this Tamatoa is what's really starting to send waves through the meta here, slight pun intended, just because he is a 4/5, he's a 6 cost, and then immediately when he comes into play, you're able to go ahead and recycle 2 of those items back into your hand to be able to play them out again. And then whenever he quests, you can go ahead and play an item out for free. So cool, you have a lucky dime in your hand, go ahead and play it for free when you quest with this guy. And that really comes down to, almost in this meta, especially going against this style of deck, you need to be able to prepare for this kind of matchup. And, that's why I'm very well considering if I'm playing Steel, I'm getting ready to play the Fire the Cannons again. I'm getting ready to play 4 copies of Along Came Zeus. The Tamatoa comes in, yeah, he can go ahead and fish out 2 items and add them into your hand. That's no problem whatsoever. What is the problem, though, is when he is able to play a free item. And so if I'm able to go ahead and just Zeus him out of existence, cool. I am perfectly fine with that. And you can go ahead and pay for that lucky dime all day. I don't care about that. What I do care about is you, though, playing items for free. And so you got to be a little bit careful about how you go up against this deck. And I think that's really why this deck is so powerful in the meta, is because people haven't necessarily learned how to play against this kind of matchup. Tamatoa is a really good card. I'm not going to be discounting that at all. Oswald is a really good card. Same with Bell, same with Scrooge. And this is a brand new kind of archetype, being able to get, characters out via items. That's really cool, but it's not necessarily anything that needs to be errated or banned in this case. It's just something that we need to adjust as a community to be able to play around. And so it's a really cool option, and I love how this deck has been able to function. It's scary. I'm not going to lie. It's a scary deck to have to go against, but there's a couple of options that we can go ahead and do in order to get this deck taken care of. And so, yes, this is a tier 1 deck. It is a very efficient deck. At the same time, you just need to, adjust your deck lists a little bit to be able to properly prepare to go against this kind of matchup because hey, it's something that's not going to be going anywhere. And if anything, you're going to be seeing more of that. We've seen that with the price action. There is a lot of people who have bought these decks. And so it's going to be something very interesting to have to go against in the future, but something that we not necessarily should be fearful of, just being prepared for, Wait, that's interesting. I think that goes into our next deck. Oh, what is that? Well, it's the Bells of Notre Dame. Now, with that being said, this is a really, and yes, don't worry. I really enjoyed coming up with the puns of these deck lists. Anyway, so this bell is actually really interesting because you go ahead and you're also playing the new bell as well, and she is interesting. I love this in particular because she's a shift 7. That's a lot, and she's a 7/7. That's pretty good. She quests for 3. That's like a Sisu. What? Yeah. What that necessarily means as well is she's insane because she has a salvage thing where for each item card in your discard, you pay 1 less to play this character using her shift ability. So you get 3 items in the discard and you can go ahead and play her out on turn 4. Then, on top of that, you can go ahead and whenever this character quests, you may put up to 3 item cards from your discard on the bottom of your deck to gain 1 lore for each item card moved this way. So you're telling me that I can go ahead and gain 6 lore in 1 turn on turn 4? Yeah, that's exactly what I am saying. I'm talking to myself here, but that's okay. Now, Sisu, of course, is still going to be a really powerful option here. Hiram, of course, is going to be super insane. You're not necessarily going to be getting Scrooge out too much, and this is even something in this case that I would necessarily be removing Scrooge. While yes, you are playing a lot of items, you are also removing a lot of items with Bell, with Hiram. So trying to get to that 4, I just feel like there's a little bit better items that we could maybe optimize for this scenario here. But still, he is a great card, especially for a 4/4 for 4. I would even add maybe the other Scrooge that is a 5/5 questing for 2. He would be a great option for this ramp as well. And of course, we got the Maui Half Sharks. We still are playing the Sisus. We're playing no Maleficent Dragons. If you did also want to maybe take out the Scrooge and play 2 Maleficent Dragons, that wouldn't necessarily be too bad of an option as well. And then if you're also kind of worried about how expensive this is, I would even go down to 3 in this case, save you a good $70 in that case. And maybe go ahead and remove the Scrooge and add 3 Maleficent Dragons. That's still going to be a great option for you as well. Or even just going in for the Maui Half Sharks because you still do have a lot of options to be able to go this way as well. So, I mean, that's going to be a little bit way for you to be able to budget better with this deck in particular while it still is able to be an absolute powerhouse. Now, at the same way, Hideaway is going to be just an absolutely powerful card this set, just because it is going to be able to get rid of a, item or location right away. And there's going to be a lot of items or locations that you do want to get rid of because you don't want them to be getting out the bells. You don't want them to be getting out the Scrooge McDucks. At the same time, we also have the Sail the Azurite Sea. We have the Brawls, and the Brawls are even that much more better. And that's also why you might want to maybe play the Medusas a little bit more because we have a Sapphire Coil, which anytime you put something into your Inkwell, chosen character gets -2 attack. That's pretty good. I like how that sounds. I like how that looks. And it's inkable too, so normally in the beginning game, you're not necessarily going to be playing this out. But wait, why? What? There's something that could play it out. Oh, unconventional tool, you tell me. Well, what does that do? Well, this has a very unique ability. Not that you can banish this card, but when you banish this card, you may pay 2 less for the next item you play this turn. Huh. So you're telling me that I can go ahead and play an unconventional tool out on turn 1, banish it with Bell, for example, get Bell out turn 1, and then go ahead and play Sapphire Coil for free? Uh-huh. And then you're telling me, maybe if I do keep the unconventional tool out for turn, and then turn 2, I go ahead and play a Sail the Azurite Sea, and then I go ahead and, banish the unconventional tool, get the Bell out, put a something out into the inkwell and then go ahead and play out a Fishbone Quill on turn 3, yeah, that's very possible. And that's something that's going to be very interesting about this game. And so you have a couple of combos that you need to really learn how to utilize and kind of shift your play in that regard. I mean, it's just a really well played and really well versed deck. You're not necessarily going to be ramping as hard as you're normally used to, but that even might be something to go ahead and test as well, where maybe you don't want to play the hideaways, maybe you don't want to play the let it goes per se. Go ahead, take out the hideaway, take out the let it go, and do 3 of the how far I'll go in that case, because having them to be able to sing that on turn 4 as well, um, or on turn 5 if you happen to miss the Hiram in your hand and you play out a Scrooge McDuck, you can still go ahead and sing the cards to be able to get the ramp. And so there's going to be a couple of really good variations that you can go ahead and utilize with this deck. Now, you're still going to be, of course, playing the one Lucky Dime because you do have the Sisus and the Bells that are going to be absolutely crucial on getting you to that 20 lore. And so there's just going to be a lot of optimization that you're going to want to play around, especially with Maurice's workshop. Because anytime you play an item and you have 21 of them, you're going to be wanting to play this. Is this necessarily a set or a deck list that you're going to want to be playing, the Oswalds for as well? Maybe. It's definitely a viable one, but if so, you would want to definitely make that shift over into, getting more cards into your inkwell per turn to really filter through your deck so that you can find those items that you need to be able to play for free. There's a lot of potential with these kinds of deck lists, especially with what we've seen shaken up in the meta, and so something to keep in mind as we dive into that. So, next list. Whoop. Yep. It is Ohana means aggro. So, and with that, this is a really interesting deck list because, yes, it is something that is going to be a lot more aggro in this case, duh, the name. But with that, it's going to be really interesting as well because what this particularly means is that if they're going to take the time to go ahead and ramp and get rid of and get things going with their deck, we're going to try to go in and get this deck moving as fast as possible to get up to the 20 lore in the most efficient way that we know how to. At the same time, the little bit difficult part about this deck and the difficult part about playing any pure aggro deck is that if your opponent has removal in their hands, for example, if they're playing the turn 1 bells and then they're starting to pop your stuff with Let the Storm Rage on and things of that nature, then you're going to be finding yourself having a little bit harder of a time trying to get to that 20 lore. At the same time, this still has a lot of really interesting moments to be able to move through and to try to get you ahead with this deck list. First and foremost, library is going to be one of the biggest things to help keep you into this game. And at the same time, feel free to move your characters in to try to get that, if they are going to be attacking in, well, it's replacing itself. And also, if you have a Chernobog follower, moving it into the library, banishing it, and drawing 2 cards off of library and its activation is going to be absolutely crucial and a pretty big game changer as well. At the same time, So Much to Give is actually a pretty good card as well, just because you can go ahead and give anything bodyguard. You're not necessarily doing it for the bodyguard exactly, but it still can be very helpful, especially if you want to put that on like a crab or a goat or something like that and protect the rest of your party with that. And it also draws a card, which is really helpful in that case. And then also, This Is My Family is a pretty good card. It is a song as well. Both of these are, of course, songs. All 3 of these are songs. And so any of these and all of these can be sung, which is really fun. Now, of course, the Isabel is going to be kind of the game changer of your deck. I mean, you don't necessarily need it out, but if it does come out, it can be an absolute game changer. Now, the biggest reason for that is, of course, when one of your characters sings a song, this character can't be challenged until the start of your next turn. That's pretty good. Then, of course, it also can quest for 4, and it's a 3/3. Now, 3/3 is still a little bit easy to take out, but unless you also have the removal to be able to do so, it's not going to be necessarily anything that you're going to be able to take care of. If she goes ahead and quests once, you're in a really good spot on getting things taken care of with her. Now, this is also going to be a really interesting card as well. You're not necessarily going to be keeping her in your starting hand. In fact, I go ahead and always, put her back into the mulligan as soon as I get her in my starting hand. I don't necessarily want her in there, but mid to late game, she's pretty good, especially because people are going to be, especially late game, might not be able to have all of the removal responses that they'll initially be able to have. Cool. And you really just need her to be able to go off once, because if you go ahead and choose and exert her with her ability, you can choose 3 cards from chosen opponent's discard and put them into the bottom of their deck to gain 3 lore. And if a princess card is selected this way, you can gain 4 lore instead. That's interesting because Belle is a princess. And so if she happens to go into the banner zone and you have the queen out, oh man, 4 lore, thank you. I will take that all day, every day. And so she's a really good one. Now, the Rapunzel in particular, that's going to be something that you definitely can shift around in. You're not necessarily going to be using Rapunzel's ability too much to grab cards, or if you're wanting to do a more budget-friendly deck, in particular, you could go ahead and switch with rabbits and still be able to do a lot of really good stuff with this deck as well. So that's definitely going to be something to keep in mind. Also, crab in particular isn't necessarily anything to write home about. You're not necessarily, that's something that I would change in this deck as well. Again, we're going on more of the aggro front, but still being able to have like a Diablo to be able to come in, and instead of questing for the 1, for example, it can go ahead and attack into something. That's going to be pretty viable. But also, I mean, the snakes are going to be a good option, but you might want to even put that up to 3 or 4 in that case. The honey marin is going to be very helpful as well, and whenever you play this character, if an opponent has an exerted character, gain a lore, cool. I mean, there's just a lot of viabilities on things to be able to get things moving forward. And of course, if your opponent happens to lose a lot of their destruction in particular, then you're going to be able to just go ahead and steamroll them and get to 20 extremely fast. And we're going to be also having some gameplay coming out of this deck in particular in the coming days. So that's going to be something to look forward to as well. Now, we have a couple of different deck lists, and this is what's going to be interesting because yes, we did have a release event that had 138 competitors in it as well. But we also had something that was really interesting too, because we had a $1,500 pre-release that had 51 players in it, and the Oswald deck was actually played in these decks as well. And so that's really interesting because the Amber Steel deck still ended up getting second. And of course, this was a little bit more of an aggro build in particular, but it still was able to absolutely do a lot of work. And it was able to get a lot of things done properly and efficiently, like what it was able to do in set 6. And this is what's interesting too. It doesn't necessarily have any of the new cards in it, and I mean, you very well could put the Maribel in it or things like that, or whatever the 4-cost singer, Isabella, that would be able to gain you the 4 lore, for example. So you could go ahead and get that going. Also, the Plutos are okay in this matchup. I'm not going to be knocking that anyway, because I mean, they were able to get second and they lost to the Oswald deck, but even still, they were able to absolutely do and work wonders at their locals with that. So I mean, Cinderella is a great card. Daisy Duck, of course. Robin Hood, Calhoun, 4 docks to maintain that card draw. 1 Lilo. I would even drop that Lilo if you're only running 1. Why are you running it? Mr. Smee, Piglet, and then being able to banish a chosen item and quest for 2 if he happens to survive long enough. And Pete's going to be absolutely putting in work this meta too. There's a lot of songs and actions that you are just going to be worried about. Super surprised by the Tiana as well. I mean, that's a great card, being able to get that going. And apparently, it worked out really well. Now, of course, you do have to worry about it getting Zeused and whatnot, but I mean, and still, it can also be attacked if you happen to play 3, but that is a pretty high cost until the late game, because Ruby, Sapphire, and Sapphire Steel are going to be having a lot of lore in that case. But still, we can go ahead and take this deck and turn it into a set 7 deck and make it a little bit more efficient and things of that nature as well. And it can go ahead and even put in work and go against these top tier decks. And again, that's why I'm saying don't necessarily worry about the meta that we technically have right now. There is still a really good chance that so much of it can change. And lastly, the deck that we are going to be talking about, of course, is going to be a Steel Amethyst. This isn't necessarily as optimized of a list as I would like for set 7. There's one that I'm still actually testing right now that does a really good job, but this was really kind of almost, I felt like a quick build for this kind of matchup, but it still does a really good job. I mean, you got the Calhouns here, you got the Giant Cobra, which can just make such a difference. And then, of course, the White Rose, the Goats, and things of that nature. And then also an Elsa. And I mean, the Elsa is still good. Again, I would consider putting maybe Bagheera in this deck list, and I would also consider putting in not only Elsa, or not Elsa, but maybe even the Queen in this case too. Also, instead of maybe putting Genie in this case, I would switch it over into potentially doing, like I said, the Queen. Going 2 queens, going 3 queens. This is a 61 card deck in that case. I would almost even want to put up Giant Cobra a little bit higher because you could discard a card and then next turn sing friends on the other side and you're still in a good place. At the same time, this has been actually one that I've been working on myself to try to get the balance and everything of this deck, and it's actually performed pretty dang well. I still don't know about the Robin Hood shift line in this particular deck. It's not necessarily one that you want to do more so in the beginning of the game. You want to try to go wider. It feels like, especially in this meta, you want to your Calhouns are a lot more valuable than maybe even like a turn 1, turn 2 Robin Hood, and going a turn 2 Calhoun, turn 3 Smee, turn 3 Lawrence even for example, is a pretty good option. And so there's still a lot of testing here, but there is a lot of lore to be had here, which is something to definitely keep in mind. And again, that's why we might be going back to playing our This Is My Family, for example, as a song because, Honey Marin can sing that. You don't lose out on the lore necessarily. You are still able to draw a card and get a lot of things done. And then if you go ahead and draw the card off of Honey Marin singing, This Is My Family, then you can go ahead and play out the Giant Cobra and you're discarding a card that you already have replaced in a way. And so it's not necessarily a bad thing. Also, I would be willing to try running 1, maybe 2, Restore the Crowns, because that can be an absolute game changer. And that's where the Robin Hood especially would be a really big factor here, because you exert all opposing characters, and whenever one of your characters banishes another character in a challenge this turn, gain 2 lore. So I mean, Robin Hood could very well gain 4. Cool. Bagheera could go ahead and attack into something, gain 4. Then you could go ahead and exert the Queen, put the or choose 3 cards and put them into the bottom of the deck and gain 3, maybe 4. Cool, that's awesome. There's a lot of things to be able to gain a lot of lore, and that's going to be one of the biggest things, is trying to move fast. But I mean, like I said, this is a brand new meta, and so that's going to be the biggest thing. Don't feel like you have to feel trapped in this meta and that it is a woe is me kind of state. No, there is a lot out here that has yet to be explored, and something that needs to be explored, because there's a lot of really exciting things that can really slide into these deck lists that can really take it to not only Oswald but for the rest of the meta as well. And I don't feel like this is going to be a 2-deck meta, which is what a lot of people are fearful of. It's going to be Ruby Sapphire and Sapphire Steel. Oh no, it's not going to be that way at all. There's still going to be a lot of really fun decks and a lot of really fun options that have yet to be explored. So yeah, that's going to be pretty much it for the video. Let me know on what decks you guys are currently testing and what you are excited for with this set 7 meta. Again, I do think that these prices are definitely going to be coming down as soon as these decks go ahead or set 7 hits retail. That's going to be one of the biggest things there on deciding that. And so what do you guys think about this meta? What do you guys think about the whole Oswald that ends Wald deck list as well? It's a really interesting one. Curious on what your guys' thoughts are. And if you do like these kind of videos and content, go ahead and hit the subscribe down below. It'd be great to be able to have your support. Go ahead and hit the like button as well. It does an absolute wonder on getting me out to new people as a new content creator. So really appreciate all that you guys have done, and until next time, have a good one.